What's going on inside Trump's head, even though he's in Japan as we speak? What's going on in terms of the demolition of the White House?
Well,
what are you hearing? What are you hearing?
Well, I did hear something, and I was recount someone who was privy to the room in which, you know, so he has this idea. He's going to do this ballroom. It's going to be called, by the way, and I don't know if this is official, but certainly within the White House, this has been official that this will be called the Trump Ballroom.
Right.
But of course,
and of course, it outweighs the size of everything else. It outmuscles everything else.
yeah, no, I mean it's a kind of backdoor to how you call it the Trump White House, which might be a bridge too far, but the Trump Ballroom is going to be very much a real thing. So anyway, and of course that he got into this by saying the White House itself would not be touched. It's just going to be an add-on. And then of course the White House was really touched with the wrecking ball. And so when they came to him, the building, the contracting team, the engineering team, they came, they had a meeting, and they said, you know, listen, it really would be much cheaper and faster just to tear down the East Wing. And he said, this was given to me as a quote, he said, fuck, but can we do the demolition at night?
Wow.
So you know,
the idea would be Washington would wake up and the East Wing would have evaporated.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing, I mean, that's a real estate developer trick. Once what you tear down, you cannot build back. So it's a fait accompli.
Right. Once it's demolished, it's gone. Yeah, a bit like Penn Station.
Well, a bit like there's a lot of projects in New York. I mean, and if you're a developer from New York, when Trump is a developer from New York, there are always all kinds of impediments, social, logistical, political. In some sense, like democracy itself.
Right.
In Washington, whatever you do, whatever you propose is going to have social, logistical, and political impediments. And clearly Trump has gotten around so many of those things in the 10 months of this administration. And that kind of comes out of his experience as a real estate developer. And going back to this, how do we avoid? You know, imagine the outpouring that there would have been if he said, "I'm going to tear down the White House."
Right. Well, there was an interesting piece in the Washington Post that said this is obviously the metaphor that everybody's been talking about, but this is why people actually like Trump, because he gets things done, because he tears through the red tape.
Well, we should be more specific. This may be why Jeff Bezos, who owns the Washington Post, likes Trump and has been very clearly, incrementally shifting the Washington Post. Democracy dies in darkness. Remember, the White House in dark. The White House dies in darkness.
Right. Well, the White House is demolished in darkness.
Yes. But clearly, Bezos has been organizing and directing a shift of the Washington Post, to a Trump neutral and perhaps a Trump favoring publication.
Well, it was a very skillfully written opinion piece because it nodded to the fact that, in theory, the East Wing is something that we all love, but in fact, this is how change happens. And, you know, when Truman put up the balcony, everybody thought, oh, this is outrageous, but now it's fondly called the Truman balcony. And so
this is all bullshit. I mean, this is all, you know, what's going to be, it's very clear what is going to be built there should not be built. It's going to be out of proportion. It's going to be a vulgarity, a carbuncle on the nose of an old friend, taking the Federalist Reserve of this building, which has been very symbolic of the American democracy. It's fundamental. I mean, that is the
Right,
White
it's not
House.
a palace. It's not
is
a
a
palace.
symbol. No, it's a kind of a little. I mean, the family has a little space. The West Wing is like a kind of a college admissions office.
Well, it's a sort of warren of little offices up strange staircases.
Yeah,
right?
no.
It's
and-
not grandiose, is the point. It's not like a Russian palace. It's not like a British castle. It's not like Buckingham Palace.
And even those things would be better than what this ballroom is going to be like. This ballroom is not going to be like any of those things. It is going to be like, actually, my wife zoomed in on this, like a wedding mill in New Jersey.
Like a wedding mill in New Jersey. My repeating that phrase, by the way, is going to irritate one of our commentators. We're going to come to some of your comments later, who said that I have an annoying habit of repeating things that you say. But often I'm repeating them because I'm thinking about them, and I'm trying to make sure that people haven't missed them if they've been making coffee or something.
Yes, and anyone else can repeat them, please.
So we've got the insane rapid demolition. The only thing that I think would be very interesting is if Donald Trump managed to rebuild it or build his ballroom really quickly. That would be impressive. I've got an anxiety that it's just going to lie there as a pile of rubble because he's sort of moved on now.
Yeah, no, I think, Jeffrey Epstein always said, Donald Trump was a moron and a grifter, and he could go down the list of things that he was. But Epstein would say he was actually really good at organizing construction.
Okay, well, let's see if that works out here, because I'm sure there are various people, and actually we've had lots of people writing in saying, can people sue him and stop him putting up the ballroom? Is there a mechanism to do that?
Well, there probably is, but the point is when you've already done it, the facts on the ground have now changed. What are you going to do? Just leave it like that?
Well, in some areas where there is really strict zoning, people are sometimes made to unbuild their house. So it's possible that a court or someone could come back and say, a historic commission or something, you have to rebuild it as it was. That was not your job to tear it down.
Yeah, good luck with that. That's under.
Well, because he turns out to have the power to be able to do this. All right, so he's in Japan. Meanwhile, Steve Bannon has been talking to The Economist, saying that he's working on a third term for Donald Trump. And then Donald Trump, on the plane on the way over, was talking about maybe a third term, but it wouldn't be that he would be the vice president to J.D. Vance, because that would be weird. It would be weird. But what do we think? Third term, no third term?
Let's go through. There are kind of there's a couple of dimensions going on here. Okay, within the White House, nobody believes that Trump is going to have a third term. Nobody believes that he can, in any expression of the American Constitution, have a third term. Nor does Trump believe this. Okay. But having said all of that they understand that it won't happen, that it shouldn't happen, that it can't happen. Against that context, might it yet happen? And remember, so much of what Trump has done, we would have said, "Oh, that can't happen."
Right.
And then it happens. Tearing down the White House, for instance.
Bombing random boats in any sea that you care to mention at this point.
Bombing random boats, yes. So anyway, then we have Steve Bannon going on stage with the editor of The Economist and announcing that it is not only will it happen, but there is already a plan in place for it to happen. Now, I think I've said here that there is no baloney like Bannon baloney.
Right, you've definitely said that here.
And I want to repeat that because that's absolutely true, because it's not as if Steve Bannon believes that there is actually any constitutional way for this to happen, or even that he believes that this will happen. What Steve Bannon believes is that it is it is going to get him noticed by saying it will happen. But that does not mean that that what he says, that the way he understands how Trump works, and although Trump, and that's the other thing about this, that basically Steve was using this to suggest that he talks to Trump. He does not talk to Trump, and more importantly, Trump does not talk to him because Trump really dislikes Steve Bannon.
Well, and it feels to me like Steve Bannon had a moment where he got Donald Trump elected, and they used each other, and then they had no use for each other.
Right. Now, but and remember, Steve Bannon has then styled himself, even before Donald Trump, as the spear of this new movement, the MAGA movement, although it wasn't even called MAGA then. And is he now trying to style himself as the spear of a third term? And again, there's a whole bunch of jujitsu acts going on here because clearly Steve doesn't believe, Steve is a smart guy, doesn't believe that this is possible. But how do you make the impossible possible? And if you are the guy who elected Donald Trump president, you really do believe I can make the impossible possible. And what he knows about Donald Trump, there are a couple of very key things here. That the best way to talk to Donald Trump is not in person; it's through the media.
Right.
And then you have a situation where people are saying, and Trump will start to repeat this, people are saying that I'm going to have a third term. That means Steve Bannon is saying.
Right, Steve Bannon has lit the spark.
Right. And while this is not at all possible, nevertheless, what Steve Bannon now in his further iteration of this is saying to people is, what if the Republicans simply nominate nobody else and nominate Donald Trump again? What happens if you clearly have the will of a major party, the will of the people here? The Republicans have nominated Donald Trump for a third term, and not anyone else. There's a nominating convention. They nominate Donald Trump. And then there's a kind of peculiar argument that they say, well, a president cannot, you can only have 2 terms, but that doesn't mean you can't run for a third term.
Right.
And again, all this is ridiculous, preposterous. But again, it's the world of Donald Trump.